What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 20. That's right, episode 020. This is episode 20 of FOMOFanz. I couldn't be more excited that we made it to episode 20. If you listen to this show, the average podcast only makes it to 7 episodes before they give up. I like to believe I go big or I go home, and I'm trying to live it and prove it. Therefore, we've made it to episode 20, which is an awesome thing. You also know that I put a 0. I started with 3 numbers for every podcast episode. So instead of saying this is episode 20, I say episode 020. The reason for that was I'm motivated, inspired, and making a guarantee that we will make it to 100 episodes of this show. So I like to celebrate my wins along the way, as well as have a bigger goal. So my goal is 100 episodes, but we are going to celebrate each milestone along the way, and no exception for this episode, which is episode number 20. And for episode 20, I want to do a couple special things. As you know, I broadcast this show live on Facebook Live and Periscope, and I've been tweaking with that. I've been testing with it. I kind of keep the last 5 minutes of the episode to something that's only available on the podcast, so people have to go download the podcast episode itself from iTunes, Stitcher, or Auto Radio, wherever you might be listening to it. But I've been trying to kind of tweak with the format, and so what I've decided for episode 20 and beyond, we're going to do the 5-minute segment that you're going to hear at the very end of this podcast every single week moving forward until I probably change my mind or I get better feedback from everybody. Will be a rant on a topic or an example that is similar to what the show is about, but it's going to be very rant focused in the sense where I'm going to share direct advice, my direct opinion. It might be a little bit more let's say brash, a little bit more outlandish than what I normally present, what I normally put on this show. But I have lots of things to say. I believe everyone has a voice, and I think part of the reason I love this podcast is that it's kind of my opportunity to share my thoughts, my beliefs, and part of that is really standing up and preaching exactly what I believe and not being afraid of the backlash or what people have to say. So starting from this episode, the last 5 minutes, which you won't hear on the live broadcast, will be a rant. But for this episode, for episode 20, I wanted to kind of talk about something, and it might come across fluffy, but for me, it's something that I wholeheartedly believe in, and it's actually been spurred. I've done about 14 interviews on podcasts in the last 2 weeks. For whatever reason, the guest list of people wanting me to be a guest on their podcast is really amped up. And I've been a guest on 14 podcasts. And one of the questions I was getting, or one of the things that people were kind of putting around my message, is they're like, Brian, you do a lot of work with the Be Yourself, and your course. You do a lot of work around, different things that are going on. You love technology, you love social media, but really you're more inspirational and motivational than you are anything else. And that still is something that's hard for me to get around, as I'm a technology guy. I'm a guy that likes to do the blocking and tackling. I've been setting up new ClickFunnels for my online course. I've been tweaking with my second iPhone right now because there's a new version of beta out there. My friends at Auto Radio, the podcasting app, have given me access to their beta in test flight so I can tweak it and test it. And I guess for me, I always looked at things as like kind of, if you were motivational and inspirational, then you weren't technical or weren't someone that was doing kind of the hard work. And that's kind of weird for me to put in there because I'm a guy that doesn't believe in niches, and I'm a guy that believes that you can do more than one thing. And I think that's kind of where I come around with this conversation. And the question that I've been getting for all these podcasts is, Brian, if you had to share one message, if there was one thing that you could spread with the world, if money was not a limit, if time and resources were not something that were preventing you from doing so, what's the number one thing for you that you believe would lead to successful business, successful life, and really just growth as digital humans? And for me, it's an easy answer, and the word is empathy. And empathy to me, and there's lots of things that are out there. I'm a big fan of Brené Brown. If you guys haven't watched her talk, I saw her at South by Southwest last year, and Brené gave an amazing talk on vulnerabilities and the idea of empathy, which really touched close to my heart. But I want to kind of clarify what that means to me. and kind of how those things go together, and then how I use empathy to connect with people and ultimately grow my community. Because something that I've now looked back and realized that makes me really successful is that I have the ability to connect people from different backgrounds and different worlds that can do great things together. My mission or my passion of connecting great people with great people to do great things, part of that has to be, you have to be willing to look outside of your sandbox, play outside of your sandbox, but also make a difference outside of your sandbox to truly connect people outside of their sphere or their circle of people they work with. And one of the things that people often get confused with is the idea of sympathy versus empathy. And I believe in the religion of happiness, and that sounds fluffy, and this isn't a religious show or a political show, but I grew up Catholic, but I've kind of converted my own beliefs to my own style of, I love and believe in anyone that has any mission, any focus, any religion, as long as they are happy for what they believe in and they're not hurting anyone else. And part of the difference between sympathy and empathy comes down to, sympathy is really feeling compassion or pity or sorrow for someone's hardship or what they believe, where empathy really puts it in and says, hey, I got to put me in their shoes. I want to wear their shoes. I want to understand what they're doing. And I want to break this down for you in a couple different ways. And one of them, is as an entrepreneur, one of the things that I think is crippling, and it's crippled me a couple times, especially writing my book. It's really crippled me writing my book. Is that when you're doing something and you start to research or you start to look what's out there, all of a sudden, and I'm asking the live audience as well as the audience on podcast, how many people here, when you're doing a big project or you're working on something, and all of a sudden you stumble across someone else that has said something similar or that is doing something around the same thing you're doing, and all of a sudden you get this feeling of, oh crap, am I wasting my time? Someone else has already done it, right? You have this idea, or you kind of get to this place in your life and in your world, and you start to look at things and say, man, such and such is doing it this way, or my competitor or someone that is in my industry is doing it louder than I am. I hate them, or you start becoming jealous of what someone else is doing, or jealous that someone beat you to the market, or jealous that someone is preaching something that you really wanted to do. And I see everybody on Facebook Live, jumping in and Periscope, giving their comments that they all kind of have felt that. And for me, empathy is simply when I see someone that I start to become jealous with, especially in business, I start to ask myself, am I jealous because of what they did? Or am I jealous because they did it, I haven't done it yet? Or when I'm looking at it and I say, hey, this person has accomplished this and I can't figure out why they did it that way, rather than feeling like, man, that's really weird the way they did it, I think of myself and say, okay, let me understand who they are. Let me understand what their why is, and let me understand what they're about. And when you just start to understand who they are, what they're about, and why they do what they do, you can start to understand their end goal and their mission. And I think when we're looking at competition, sometimes we just look at the competition and say, crap, they're going to beat us. But then if you look at the competition, and let's say you put yourself in their shoes, then you start saying, well, who's their target audience? What is their goal? What do they have that I don't have? Or what do I have that they don't have? And I think one of these key elements of empathy is that you can't first, and this is something I believe, there's no book I've read about this is my thoughts, is I believe it's extremely hard to have empathy for others without first being self-aware of who you are, what you're good at, and where your strengths and weaknesses are. Now, I have lots of weaknesses. There's weaknesses and things that I'm battling and struggling on a daily basis. Today being one of those days where I've been battling, a couple of things in my personal life. And for me, I understand my weaknesses. I'm attempting to work through them and grow. But I think understanding and being self-aware allows you to kind of let your guard down or your ego and put yourself in someone else's shoes. Because if you first can't look in the mirror and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, how in the hell are you going to lace up someone else's shoes? When you couldn't first put that same explanation on yourself. And so when I look at things and when I look at, the mission and what we're doing and my belief in the power of empathy, that difference between empathy and compassion or, sympathy for someone, if someone tells you something like, hey, my business is really struggling, the course I just launched just really failed in my face, do you say, man, that really sucks? Or do you put yourself in your shoes and like, wow, the way you went about that was, extremely interesting, and you made these kind of decisions. I'm curious, why did you make this decision? Or how'd you come about picking this platform to launch your course? Or what did you do that inspired you to take on this task? And the reason I wanted to put it this way is that, there's oftentimes, it doesn't come down just to personal beliefs, but, political beliefs or struggles in our life, or let's say even marriage and divorce, or someone making a decision in their business life or opting out of doing something. I've been very blessed and very fortunate to be someone that has had many, many, many opportunities come my way. People are willing to go be my advocates. 95% of my speaking gigs come from the community, you the listeners, you my digital community, that you go and advocate for me. You go tell your boss to hire me to speak at your event. You post on social media that the speaker that you would like to see is Brian Fanzo. And that ability, that connection with my community, it inspires me to always think about the greater good, but also think about each individual person and what they believe, what their success is, what matters the most to them. And I think this is where I look at empathy and also the importance of connections. And I love relationships. I love and believe in the power of building relationships. And we all know my quote, social media will not replace a handshake, but it will give you the opportunity to turn new handshakes into hugs and selfies, and I really do believe that. And this month is the month of March. I'll be going to South by Southwest, followed by the Adobe Summit, and then at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego at the end of the month. And I'll be giving hundreds and thousands of hugs and selfies over the rest of the month. And I couldn't tell you that's my most exciting thing that I do. I love connecting with people, but it goes beyond that. And I think when you're looking at empathy and you're looking at how do you build relationships that turn into valuable relationships, I believe you have to be strategic, but strategic doesn't mean you have to be fake or automated. And bringing this kind of into a realm of business, I love connecting different people. And, oftentimes people say, that might be my number one skill or my number one value that I present to sponsors, to businesses that I work with, is oftentimes I'm the only one that, is connected and talking with millennials, while also having a very, baby boomer focused community, at the same time having a very tech geeky community and a community that loves and believes in the power of sports. And this all comes down to, growing up and having this idea that if I can truly be myself and connect with different people, then I don't have to think or believe in everything that someone else does. And so this is a very important part, and this is the thing that I really wanted to hit home with this, is just because you support somebody or just because someone is in your network or you're working alongside somebody, if you have empathy and you understand the power of being, having empathy as a whole, it truly doesn't mean that you support everything they're doing. It means you understand why they're doing it and you understand what it means to them. And that is so important, because it's not about, hey, I would do it the same way. If you would do it the same way, and this is, funny thing about internet and social media, about 5 minutes before I came on this podcast, I got a nice message from somebody via Facebook Messenger, and they just said, Brian, I am really struggling. I am doing the exact same thing, and I'm going to leave out the thought leader's name, the exact same thing as this thought leader. And verbatim, I've launched a podcast, I'm doing all of these things, and I can't stand out. I can't make the headway of someone else. And here's the breaking news segment of this episode of FOMOFanz. Breaking news. If you are copying and following someone else, even if you have empathy to understand why they're doing it and what they're doing, you become the exhaust of that person. you do not become your own person on your own mission, you will not be able to stand out. The key is actually putting yourself in their shoes so that you can understand their why, so that you can understand what their success looks like, so that you can understand their own personal goals, and then taking yourself and stepping back out of those shoes. Because being empathetic and putting on those shoes of someone else only works is if when you put your own shoes back on, you've actually learned something. You have a better understanding of who they are, what they are about, their why, their mission, their message. And I guess the reason I want to use this for episode 20 is that we all have different missions. We all have different goals. And the most popular episode of this show so far, of the first 20 episodes, was actually episode number 14, which talked about relationships and talked about how relationships have changed my business, my life. And I even gave out the 40 people that have drastically impacted my career. And that episode has been the number one episode. And I've asked some of you listeners, why did you guys love, episode 14 the most, or what really made you excited about sharing episode 14? And they said, Brian, it's just the ability to celebrate someone else, but do it in a personalized, unique way so that person feels special, but yet we can all learn from that. And I take pride in that, and it's not an ego thing, but I truly take pride in when I'm celebrating someone, when I'm sharing someone else's work on social media. When if someone has a new book out, you guys know I've been celebrating my friend Amy Schmittauer's new book, Vlog Like a Boss. I also have my good friend Marcus Sheridan's book here with me on the floor, which is the name They Ask, You Answer. But whenever I'm talking about that book, whenever I'm celebrating that book, I have to first put myself in their shoes and say, why did they create the book? And then this is one that's really important. If I'm going to celebrate them, to truly celebrate them and not be an egotistical jerk, you have to celebrate them in a way that benefits them first. If you're not celebrating someone else and promoting someone else without making them successful first, you're then just using their name. You're a name dropper, or you're someone that's trying to capitalize on just, being someone that's, hey, I'm going to name these 3 people so that people come and click on my website. I believe understanding what matters to that individual person and then celebrating it in a way that allows them to achieve success while also being something that matters to you, that's where we start truly making a difference. That's where we start, growing our community. And you guys know, one of the keynotes that I give, I'm going to be giving this keynote actually 3 times in the next 2 months, is we are greater than me. And I have always said, to be a great we, you must first invest in being a great me, which means you must invest in yourself. And I talked about it earlier. You must have self-awareness. And on that note, I want to stop for here for a second and let everybody know that if you're watching on Facebook Live, if you're watching on Periscope, and then if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to give away 1 seat to anyone who shares this episode onto Twitter using the hashtag FOMOFanz. I'm going to give 1 seat into my new course, Be Yourself, to someone on Facebook, someone on Periscope, and then a listener that actually shares this iTunes link or wherever you're listening to the podcast. I'm going to give you a seat in my course because I created this course, Be Yourself. It has a little over 4 hours of content in it that are all videos, and each video is less than 10 minutes long because we all don't have time to sit through hours of video. We barely have time to sit through 5 minutes of video or 10 minutes of video. But I created each one of these individual lessons, and it's my playbook. It's how I share content. It's what got me over the hump of blogging. It's how I launched my first podcast. It's the strategy that goes behind, the stories that I tell. It's how I audit my digital footprint. And the reason I talk about that right now is because to truly be empathetic, you have to understand yourself, but you also have to be willing to invest in yourself, because if you're not telling your story, how in the hell will anybody else? Because the story that you're telling is either being told by you or you're letting other people tell it. And if you let other people tell your story, I can promise you that story, that message will be far different than the one that you want to tell. And that's what I go through. I dedicated an entire module, 12 videos to storytelling. That's how much I believe in the importance of storytelling. But to kind of bring this full circle, once you start investing in yourself and you check out, my course, beyourself.live. So just put into the browser, www.beyourself.live. Throw that in the web browser. You guys can check out the course. There is a special promo code, FOMOFanz, FOMOFANZ. I'll put the link and the code here in the show notes of this show. But FOMOFanz is the code. But beyourself.live, and the reason I dedicate so much to this is because I want to make us all better. I want us to grow together, because to truly make a difference in this world, to put on each other's shoes and be able to walk that mile, not only do we have to be empathetic, but we have to be able to understand that it's not about being just like somebody. It's not about surrounding ourselves with yes men. Rather, it's about understanding who we are, what we're about, and being open-minded enough to understand what other people are about, and then surrounding yourself with those people to do great things. Because collaboration is something I firmly believe in. But the root of most failed collaboration is because most people or most products either throw technology at collaboration, or they don't understand the importance of collaboration starts with individual sacrifice, individual self-awareness, and then individual commitment to a greater purpose and a greater passion. You cannot collaborate. You cannot be part of a community. You cannot come together if you are not first willing to learn and listen from others, as well as willing to add your own time, your own value, your own message, your own mission. And I truly believe in that. It's something that helps me when I'm thinking about community and making a difference. And it's why I want to dedicate episode 20 to this idea of empathy, because empathy isn't about feeling bad for someone or jealous of someone. Rather, putting yourself and saying, this person grew up this way. This person is, short-term goals or long-term goals are A, B, and C. And if I had those as my goals, would I have done it differently? Or this is how they've done it. And I guess the last part of this show, and the reason I really wanted to kind of cover this today, is that in this society we're in right now, we're divided, especially in the United States as a country, around politics. And I'm not one to believe that the President of the United States is directly impacting me on a daily basis to where I have to worry about everything that's going on in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., for those that don't know, is an hour north of me. I live in Northern Virginia. So an hour north of me, there's a lot of things going on in Washington, D.C. But I am one that believes that if we each individually focus on our own self-awareness and we start embracing the importance of empathy, we can start working together and start understanding others rather than judging others or pushing people out or hating on others. I know I struggle because I want to make everyone happy, but I also struggle because I don't like to hate. I don't like to have confrontation. I don't like to see people suffer. I don't like to, I care deeply when someone tells me that they got laid off, or they're struggling in their day-to-day life, or they're going through something with their children or their family or their thing. It hurts me, and I've said it before, and it's just, all of my listeners know, I'm a crier. I'm someone that's not afraid to tear up. I'm not afraid to show my emotion. But the reason I'm so emotional, even on watching a TV show, is because I can feel it. I can believe it, and I don't like that feeling myself. So why would I want that feeling for someone else? Why would I even put that onus on someone else? There's so much hate in this world. There's so much jealousy. There's so much, pettiness. There's so much cattiness. The amount of people that are posting on Facebook saying I'm unfollowing all of my friends who think differently than me. Stop it. Stop it. I understand that they can be annoying, but you also have to remember that, we all have our own different beliefs and our own different backgrounds. And I want to surround myself with people that understand that other people are different, and it's okay to be different, and it's okay to have a different religion, or if have a different belief, or even love someone differently. I'm a big supporter of the LGBT community, because if you're happy and you've found yourself and when you get up in the morning, you're excited about the day, and you believe in what you are, who you are, why you are what you are, then good for you, because so many people that are judging other people, so many people that put down others, only do that because they are jealous. They wish they had what you had. They wish that they were as happy as you. They wish they understood what their why was. They wish they understood what they were about. They wish they could be something that you have portrayed. And I truly believe that this world can be a better place if we put empathy first. And rather than judging, rather than hating, rather than even bashing people because they're doing something differently than you, why not just take a step back and say, why do they do that? What's their mission? And then taking and remembering that we all do things differently. We are all unique. And together, if we can each embrace what makes us unique and start sharing that with the world, that's how we're going to change the world. It truly is not about everyone marching on one place. It's about each of us individually becoming self-aware, having empathy for others, and not being afraid to be yourself. Thank you guys so much for listening to episode number 20. Like I said, this will be the first episode that the podcast only section will be a rant. I already have the rant fired up. It's actually inside me, bottled up, ready to go. I'm gonna share my rant with you guys, the podcast only audience, so you guys can hear an exact example of where empathy worked and why someone that I had a close friend of mine that really has no empathy, made this issue happen. And after I talked with them and we kind of came up with an empathetic approach to understanding a mutual friend, it made a drastic impact, a massive difference in how that person does what they do. So thank you guys so much for listening. Like I said, 20 episodes. I'm beyond excited. We reached 50,000 downloads of this show 3 months or 4 months before I thought we would. And it's all because of the amazing listeners you guys are. And just remember, those that are watching on Periscope as well as Facebook, I'm going to jump off of this podcast. I will make sure to let you guys know who the winner is of the podcast, of my free seat in my course. Those that are listening on this broadcast, March 13th. So between now and March 13th, if you share out this broadcast to Twitter with the podcast link itself, I'm going to pick one winner and give you guys a seat to my course as well. And last bit of news, I will be on the road for the next 4 Mondays. The next 4 Mondays, I will be on the road, but do not fret. We will be broadcasting live from Facebook Live and Periscope. We will be doing it from the road. Next week, we will be doing it from Austin, Texas. Beautiful South by Southwest. South by Southwest is actually my number one place for business development and leads for my individual business for the last 2 years. And just a little teaser. Episode 21 will actually be coming to you this week, and it'll break down what I do, how I do it, and why South by Southwest is my number one business development resource. That'll be episode 21 coming to you in a couple days. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, go out of your way to let somebody know that you care. Tell them thank you for sharing content. Thank you for supporting you. Thank you for helping you in your business. Thank you for going to you with lunch. Because remember, too often saying thank you or just simply smiling, we forget how powerful that is. And if you show you care, I promise, when you need somebody, when your times are tough and you need that hug or you need someone to help make a difference, they'll be right there for you. Make it a great day, my friends. Cheers. All right, we are off on the podcast. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Kathy. Hey, Kathy. Hi, Vicky. I saw your comments in there. Thanks so much on Facebook. Thank you, Kim. Kim, thank you so much on Periscope. So what I'll do right now is I'm going to I have a random generator, so I'll random generate a number, and then I'll pick somebody that shared the broadcast on Facebook, and I'll pick somebody that shared the broadcast on Periscope, and I will give you a seat to my course. I'll send you a tweet. I'll post a message to you on Facebook, and then I'll give you a link and a password, and you'll get free access to my Be Yourself course as just a thank you for sharing, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for watching my content. I couldn't do what I do without you guys, and I truly do mean that. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys soon. Make it a great day, my friends.